screen, then you could go ahead and kind of.
Where's the camera?
The camera is up there, but it will cover pretty much everything. So, see, there was the whole board. So should be all good. Cool. Whenever you're ready, you're all set. Just.
This is enough people?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Just because it's before break. So.
All right. Well, as you know, there are certifications. I'll do my whole story from the beginning. So, during the Great Depression of the 1920s, okay, people couldn't get jobs. And so they were looking all over to how to get jobs. And so one of the things that you could get blue-collar jobs only. Now, the Great Depression's on, so any kind of job was great. So, and the nation was full of factories then. So if you could get certified on a certain factory machine, you could get a job. So a certain tool and die machine or a certain machine of some kind, you could get a certification to work on that machine. So if you went to the company and they trained you and you got a certification to work on, say, a Stara tool and die machine, you could then get employed as an operator on that machine. So a company certification would get you a blue-collar job. Now, flash forward to the 1990s. In the 1990s, a company named Novell invented networking. So what they did is, it was very complicated a system to do a Novell network. And so what they did is they did training and certifications. So if you could get a Novell certification, you could get a high-paying job in networking. So for the first time, you could get a very high-paying job with a company-wide cert. Now, this wasn't a university. This was a company certifying you. And that set the pace for corporate certifications meaning something. Okay, so now what happened? Well, Novell is gone. I mean, it's still there, but it's a shell of what it used to be. Who took the place of Novell? The 800-pound gorilla, Microsoft. So now there's a whole bunch of certifications by Microsoft and by Cisco and by others that would get you a job, and I'll go through what some of them are. How's that? All right, very good.
Markers up there.
No, I have my own markers, I think. Okay, very good. So let's see where we're going here.
Yeah, any place on that board is caught on the camera.
And the computer will follow.
Yeah.
So, COMPTIA, CompTIA. You may not have heard of the company, but you may have heard of their famous certification called the A+ certification. So, CompTIA A+ certification. So, how would you get that certification? Well, you would go to a trade school on Route 4, Route 17, and pay a couple $1,000s for training in it. Now, let's say you didn't want to do that. So if you didn't want to do that, what you could do is you could come to Bergen and get trained there. So if you take the Bergen class of, I think it's INF 108, which I think Professor Bill Madden teaches, it's called PC Repair, that covers the material for this test. Okay? And for quite a while, that was the only certification CompTIA did. Okay? But then they decided that they needed to have spiffier, better certifications. So this would qualify you to be a computer repair person, which is a good job. But I want to be a network administrator. So then CompTIA came up with another course called Network Plus. And so CompTIA Network Plus is a certification. Network Plus, and it's a certification. Okay? Now again, how could you get trained for this? Well, you could go to a school on Route 4, Route 17, and pay thousands of dollars and get trained. But if you take our INF 160 course, you cover the same material. Now, these are not official CompTIA training certification courses. These are college-level courses, but they happen to cover similar material. They happen to cover the same material. So if you were to take our INF 160 course, okay, that would cover the material for the Network Plus certification, and you might be able to get it. And then that's how it stood for a while. Then they decided, well, there are other things going on. And one of the other things going on, of course, was we have a lot of hackers and crackers and bad guys. So network security is a very big deal. Network security it's a very big deal. There's a lot of jobs in it, cybersecurity. And by the way, we're introducing a degree in cybersecurity at Bergen. But they have a certification called the CompTIA Security Plus certification. It's actually called that, Security Plus. And that's another test you would take that you need to get training for. Well, again, if you're on an INF 267 course, it covers the same material. Now, none of these courses are official training courses for these certs. They just happen to cover the same material as the certs, and you could get the certs. Okay. Now, that's generally where I leave the lecture. But because we have some advanced people here, I'm going to go a little further. And that is, there are other certifications we can get. Some you can get at Bergen and some you can't, that are kind of neat. Well, my original lecture was how Novell introduced the certification process. And if you get a Novell certification, you could get a fairly high-paid a networking job at good money back in the 80s and now. Well, now, who took over them? Microsoft. Well, you know Microsoft is a corporation that makes Windows. But Microsoft also has what I call some Microsoft certifications. Microsoft, and we also have some certifications. And there are quite a few of them, okay? But the one I'm going to talk about is called Windows Server. Now be very careful when I call it Windows Server. It's really not called that. It's probably called Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2022 or Windows Server 2018, whatever the latest version is. But there's a certification, the latest version of Microsoft Windows Server. And again, you can go to a trade school and pay $1,000 and get training for it. But I think one of our courses here, I think it's INF 252, would cover that. And INF 252 is also called Windows Server. Now be careful again, when I talk about Windows Server, the actual certification is Windows Server year 20, whatever the latest one is. And you could go get that one if you went here. Now, here's where I have to vary from the script a little bit. Hello. We also have a Windows certification in what used to be Windows XP, what used to be Windows 2008, what used to be Windows 2010, and now is Windows 2011. We don't teach that here, but there is such a certification. There's also one, I think, on what's called Active Directory, which is the Microsoft concept of how networks work. We don't teach that here, but there is such a cert. So you can go through a whole list of Microsoft certs and get them if you want to study for them on your own. And Microsoft certs are considered to be, well, they're the 800-pound gorilla. You're certified for Microsoft. It means you're higher level than people are, okay? And so those are the certs you can get. Now, I'm about to finish this lecture with the crowning glory. The best certification you can get, the most valuable certification, in my opinion, you can get, is how do routers work? Well, what are routers? That's the Cisco cert. And that's the one, if you got that, that sort of trumps all the other certs. So let's talk about that for a minute, and then I'll be done. So, Cisco has what's called, I think it's called the CCNA. Now people say, well look, if I get the CCN certification, I'm only certified on Cisco routers, right? Well, yes and no. All routers use the same commands, the same approach. So if you're certified in a Cisco router, but you're actually working on a router from another brand, you understand routing. So generally, the Cisco routing certification is what they want, whether you're operating on a Cisco router or not. Now, this is a very hard certification. It is very complicated. You have to study for a long period of time. We have a partial thing for this. We have two courses, INF 265 and 266. We never teach INF 266. But if you were to take INF 265, which I think we call something like network configuration, that's half of Cisco. That's half of Cisco. Now, let me just talk for a few minutes about that. That is a pretty lengthy certification. It is pretty, shall we say, rigorous to get. It requires a lot of knowledge. It's very hard to study for. But that's the cert that if you get that, you're almost assured of getting some kind of job. Because what are we talking about? Routers. And if you know anything about networking at all, the internet is routers. So that, to me, that's an internet certification. How does the internet work? That's routers. If you can get that cert, you'll get a very good job operating or working on the internet, working on routers, okay? If you're going to get any of these, the secret is pick one and concentrate on it. Don't spread your fire. Say, I only want to get A+. Get all the notes you need, everything you need, and study yourself off for A+ and make sure you get it. If you want to get an F+, concentrate on that one. Get everything else out of your mind. Pick one and focus on that for weeks and months at a time and get that cert. That's the only way to do it. You can't zigzag back and forth. People say, well, why don't I just get the Cisco cert? I'll skip the rest. Well, yes, you could, except that's very difficult. I'm maintaining if you get some of these first, and they're difficult enough, you would be more likely to get the Cisco cert. Should you get Microsoft certs? Yes, if you're going to work in a Microsoft shop, you would want a Microsoft cert. But you don't know where you're going to work yet. But if you're in a Microsoft shop, they might tell you, we want Microsoft certs. Now, one of the secrets to this, to me, is you want to get a few to get your first job. But once you get the job, and the employer says, I want you to get XYZ cert, say, okay, I'll get it. You pay for the training, you pay for the cert, and I'll get it. See what I mean? Let him pay for the training, let him pay for the cert, and you'll get the certification. Because you don't know where you're going to work yet. And once you find out where you're going to work, then you're going to know what kind of cert you want. There's a lot of Microsoft certs, and I think you should get some of them if you can. The only one we teach here is the Windows Server one, but there's plenty of others that you could study for by yourself or get trained some other place. The reason I'm concentrating on these three is very simple. These are the ones we prep you for here. Since you're already here, you've already paid for Bergen, you're already sitting here and paid for your courses, you might as well take the cert. You might as well do one of them if you're in one of these classes. So I'm hoping that some of you will do it. I want to warn you, it's a lot of, my class have heard me say it, a lot of techno-terminology, a lot of techno-babble. You have to learn term after term after term, and concept after concept after concept to understand them. It just requires a heck of a lot of studying. That's all it requires, and a lot of focusing. You would want to spend weeks and months studying for either one of these and getting one. But I'll tell you another story. It's addictive. You think you can't get anyone, and then you finally get your first one. And you stagger out of there and say, oh my God, I'll never do that again. But a week later, you say, well, that wasn't that hard. Why don't I try another one? Then you stagger out of that one and say, I'll never do that again. But then a week later, you say, well, that wasn't that hard either. Why don't I get a third one? So I have two kinds of students, those who have 5 or 10 certs and those who have none at all. Because if you get one, you're probably going to get 4 or 5 more. But if you can't get any or you're not interested in getting any, you're not going to get any. So do I think you should get them? If you're going to work in this field, if you're going to be employed in this field, then yes, you should absolutely get them. If you're not going to be whatever this is, then you don't have to. Now, there's other certs I'm not talking about. Professor Anita Verno teaches database courses. There's an Oracle certification that's very, very difficult, but it certifies you to be a database administrator. If you're going to be a database administrator, you should think of the Oracle certification. If you're not, don't bother. If you're going to be a network administrator, you should think of this one and this one. If you're not, do something else. There's a Linux certification. I think we have, I think it's CompTIA or somebody, I don't know who does it, that does a certification. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's called Linux Plus, Linux Plus. And the reason it has to be CompTIA, because Network Plus, Security Plus, Linux Plus. That's a CompTIA. That's INF 254. So if you take our INF 254 course, that teaches you Linux, I think, at that level. If you're going to work in a Linux shop or you expect to work with Linux, you should get that cert. So people say, well, which cert should I get? And my corresponding answer is, what are you going to do with your life? What area are you going to work in? If you're going to be a database administrator, go for the Oracle cert. If you're going to be a network administrator, try Cisco or Network Plus. If you think you're going to work in a Linux shop, try Linux Plus. Where are you going to work? What's the worst that can happen? You get a job and say, gee, I didn't know I needed this cert. Tell the employer, look, thank you for hiring me. What cert do you want me to get? You pay for the training, you pay for the cert, and I'll get it. So the certs make a big difference. Here's my final thing to say, and I'm done. Every student I know that has more than one cert, say 2 or 3, gets a job in IT. Now, I can't guarantee if you get 2 certs, you'll get a job in IT. But all the students I personally know that have 2 certs do have jobs in IT. That's how I say it. So I don't know any student with multiple certs who can't find a job. That's how I say it. I know a lot of students without any certs who can't find a job. I don't know any student with multiple certifications who says nobody will hire me, they won't even look at my resume. And that's the last thing I'll say. If you're floating out resumes and you're not getting any responses, 2 things. First of all, fix your resume, make sure it makes sense. Some people have a terrible resume, so fix it up. But if you have a good resume and you're not getting any responses, try to get 1 or 2 certs and put that on the line, and you'll at least get some results. You may not get hired, but people will call you up. People will say, can I talk to you? I'm interested, because they see the cert. Yes, go ahead.
What was your own personal experience with the certification?
Well, I did it from a training point of view, but I have, I think, something like 27 certifications. That's because I've been in the field so long. I have a whole bunch of Novell certs that are not of any use anymore. They're still legal. They're just not of any use. So my own thing was, it's very, how can I put it? My students who didn't have certs couldn't find jobs. My students who did have certs did get jobs. That's my point. And as I said, the big thing for him is every student I personally know that has more than one cert has some kind of job in IT. And that's the big deal. So that's, yes, go ahead.
For specifically the CompTIA courses that we,
Right.
with the classes that we have here,
Right.
would you say that they pretty much adequately prepare you for the certs with a little bit of maybe some self-study on the
careful.
side?
They pretty much prepare you with the certs with a lot of extra study, okay? So in other words, do they cover the basic concepts? Yes. Can you just study for a few days and take the cert? No. And the secret is this. It's not studying the material, it's this way the questions are phrased. So the way you prep for a cert is you get a lot of sample questions and you take sample certification tests over and over and over again. So do they prepare you? Yes. You said with a little bit of extra study, I'd say with a few months of solid extra study, you could get it. Okay, so yes, but you have to really focus on it. They're not easy tests, they're tricky tests. So what you're gonna do is take sample test questions to show the tricks. Not the material so much as the curveballs they're gonna throw you that you're gonna fall into unless you know they're coming. So by taking the sample test, you understand the curveballs they're gonna throw you and you've taught to think outside the box. So that's how I say it. So with a lot of extra studying, you can pass these certs, yeah.
If you fail a cert, how often?
You can take it as many times as you want to, but there's one major catch. It's $200 a clip. So they figure you're not gonna be shelling $200 every week to try to keep taking it over and over again. If it was free, you just take it 20 times. But at $200, you're not gonna take it 20 times. You're gonna study for the next time. No limit to the amount of times you can take it as long as you're willing to pay every time. That's the problem. That's the catch. I found that when money's on the line, you tend to study in a different way. In other words, your final exam's coming up, I don't know if I want to get to it. $200 is on the line, gee, I better really study. See what I mean? I find that really gives you religion. Okay. Are you thinking of doing it? I hope.
No, not for this, but Professor Louis had connected us with a cybersecurity friend. of
Oh,
his,
fine, there are certs in that
and
too.
He's also offering
No, there
like a free course
There are certs
for
in that too.
cybersecurity. It doesn't come with the cert, obviously,
Okay,
but it
fine.
can prep you for it.
What she said though, you need the cert for your job. So depending upon what you're gonna do, that's the cert you want. If you're doing database stuff, you want the Oracle cert. If you're doing networking stuff, you want the Cisco cert. You want the cert for the job you're gonna do. So whatever you're gonna do, get the cert for that. All right? Any other questions? I'm hoping some people in here are gonna wanna do it. Again, significant extra studying. I'd say 2 to 3 weeks to a month of solid extra studying, and you could get the cert. Mainly because you're studying the way the questions are phrased, not the material so much. Go ahead.
Do you know if there's any certification regarding software engineering?
Yes, I'm just not familiar with them. Are the CIS certs? Well, the obvious one is the database programming cert for Oracle. That's one of them. But I'm not familiar with any Java certs or C++ certs, but I think they have them. I think they have them, I just don't know them as well. Go ahead, what?
What's a good cert for someone who wants to become a systems admin?
I don't know, that's a tough one. I know what systems admin is. I'd say that Network Plus, CCNA is fine. I don't know that you need the Microsoft ones, but systems admin is a funny area. It's a sort of a, yeah. You still need to be an administrator and still know how the network works, so. But I'm no expert in that one, so you might want to look into it. Rebecca, are you going to think of getting a cert? I think so. She's in my class, she's very smart. Again, the cert you want is for the field you want, whatever field you're going to go into. So try to isolate which field. There are a bunch of cybersecurity certs. Now, we picked Security Plus because it's a great beginner cert. There's one called CISSP, which is a higher level one. But as I understand it, you can't get that cert unless you pass the test and have 1 or 2 years experience at work. Well, I can't give you the 1 or 2 years experience at work, so that's why I don't want to teach that one. See? This one, as soon as you take the test, you have the cert. Get the 1 or 2 experience at work, then do the CISSP if you want to. See what I'm saying? So anything that requires some work experience, I don't want to go for in a community college. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't when you get the work experience. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for some advanced certs when you get to that point in life. You're not there yet, but someday you will be. And the big deal is your employer will tell you. He'll say, we need to have you get this or this cert. If you have some already, he'll believe you when you say, oh, well, I'll get it for you, no problem. If you've never gotten a cert before and you promise to get it, they'll say, how do I know you can? So get at least 1 or 2 to show them you can do it. A lot of people in this class are in my class, so they're going to do it, I hope. I hope you get some. Okay, very good. Any other questions on anything? Yes?
Is there anything specific that you, like, any specific details about Security Plus you think that anyone should be aware of if they want to go get it?
No, you know what you do? Get some practice software for the latest version and make sure you go over that over and over and over it. And no, all the stuff I covered, remember in my class, I left out a chapter and I left out some slides. And it's not an old book, it's just one version back. So make sure it's the latest version. I'd say 80, 90% of those terms. But make sure any other terms that you covered also, that's all.
What's your easiest and what's your hardest certification?
I like Security Plus. I thought it was the most logical. I was surprised I got that easy. Obviously, the hardest one is probably Cisco. The hardest of these is probably Network Plus. The easiest may be 108, which is A+. That's pretty easy. And Cisco, and that was easy. This was somewhat hard. This is very logical. It's not easy, but it's logical. Cisco is noted for being most difficult just because the volume, it's not that anything's so hard, it's just so much. There's a volume of material. It's like having 2 or 3 together. You have to know this and this and this and this, and that's the problem. But if you can memorize the volume, you're okay with it. The more you practice, the more likely you are to pass. That's that simple. You're going for Security Plus, I assume that's why you asked the question. Get some practice software, get the study guide, and just live with it for 3 or 4 weeks, and then walk in and take it. That's the secret.
Any specific source you'd recommend for that?
No, I'll talk about it. I go to the The easiest one is go to the CompTIA website. You can both sign up for the test there, but you can also buy the practice software.
Okay.
And don't buy the expensive version, buy just the one that has the practice tests. Because some of it, they're trying to teach you the course. You want the practice test.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not familiar with certs, like, because I haven't gotten to that point
Right.
yet in my school, in my program, but do you need to renew them, and if so, how often? do you
Okay.
need to?
Theoretically, you need to renew them every 3 years. However, you're looking for a different reason. You just want to show the employer that you have the cert and can get it. I don't know any employer who would refuse to hire you because your cert is expired. He would refuse to hire you if you don't have it to begin with. So if he hires you and says, oh, your cert's expired, you know what you tell him? Fine, I'll update it. You pay for the test and I'll update it. You know, yes, I have the cert. It's old-fashioned. You pay for the test. I'll do the updated version. And he knows you can do it because you did it once. If you never did it at all, he doesn't know if you can do it or you're bluffing. Yes?
Would you say certifications are more valuable than internships?
No, I'm saying the most valuable is probably a 4-year college degree. The next most valuable is probably internships and certs together. Certs will get you looked at. Internships might get you the job. They're both valuable together. Try to get a cert and an internship if you can. 4-year degree is the sweet spot. Get that. But a lot of people say, look, I can't wait 4 years. I want to work earlier. Can I work earlier? The cert will put you to work earlier. That's the difference. I hope a lot of people in here are going to want to try to do it, because if this is such a smart group, I think you can do it. Any questions?
We're all good.
All right.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, very good, very good. I hope a lot of the smart people in this class do it.
Thank you so much, Professor.
My